Claude Cowork is without a doubt an absolute game changer for finance professionals. It takes you from prompting for outputs towards building automated systems that run and execute workflows end to end without any manual intervention. But with all these new updates, most people are still trying to catch up and therefore never use it to its full potential. I'll show you how to use Claude Cowork better than 99% of people by walking through 5 concrete setups that build on each other so that you move from isolated tasks to a fully integrated finance system. This will include turning your inbox into a financial intelligence feed, building an automated CFO briefing, running structured analysis inside a project environment, automating recurring workflows, and then connecting everything into a full pipeline from data to presentation. If you follow this video, you will instantly be separate from the 99% of people who are still just stuck at prompting. Now, prompting was already very important, but this goes a step further into automated systems that run analysis, validation, and reporting for you so that you can focus on decision making. Now, if you want the prompts and the data sets from this video, they're free in the community and the link is in the description below. Tip number 1, turn Gmail into a finance intelligence feed. So the first thing I'm going to show you is turning Gmail into a financial intelligence feed. The idea is that your inbox already contains signals about cash flow, about risk, and operational pressure. It's just all buried inside unstructured messages. Vendor payment reminders, client delay notices, unusual invoice amounts. These are all data points, but when you process emails manually or you ask AI to summarize them, you get a compressed version of the same chaos. What this setup does is connect Gmail to Claude Cowork and then run a single prompt that structures the entire week of email activity through a financial lens. So to set this up, I open Claude and I go to My Ideas. I click the Connectors plus icon near the input area and I select Gmail. Once I authorize the account and Gmail shows it's connected, I start a new Cowork task with Gmail available in the context. The prompt defines the financial lens, what categories of signal to look for, how to organize them, and what to ignore. It tells Claude to analyze the last 7 days, group vendor and client communications separately, flag overdue payments, unusual amounts, and urgent internal requests, and then filter out everything irrelevant. This is the kind of structured analysis that you would normally repeat every week with the same logic. And later in the video, I'll show you how to make that happen automatically. Now, once the task runs, the output is a structured report, not an email summary. At the top, there is an executive summary quantifying total accounts payable exposure, confirmed incoming cash, and overall financial context, so you don't have to piece anything together manually. Then it breaks into a vendor table with invoice numbers, amounts, due dates, and risk levels. In this example, vendor B is flagged as high risk with a payment 10 days overdue. Vendor A shows as an upcoming obligation that needs to be processed soon, and vendor C gets highlighted because the invoice amount increased unexpectedly and needs validation. On the receivable side, it separates confirmed payments, partial payments, and delayed payments into a structured view. I can see immediately that client A's payment is coming in at low risk. Client C has partially paid but still owes a balance, and client B represents a real cash flow risk due to delays and uncertainty. What makes this more than reporting is the prioritized action plan. Claude ranks the actions: pay vendor B immediately, validate vendor C's invoice, follow up with client B, and it separates low priority items like subscription issues so that they don't distract from critical decisions. It also explicitly shows what is filtered out, newsletters and non-financial emails, so that you can see the filtering logic in action. The output structure stays the same every time you run it, which is exactly what makes it possible to turn this into a fully automated process later on. Tip 2, combine Gmail and Calendar into a CFO briefing with remote execution. Tip 2 combines Gmail with your calendar to build a daily CFO briefing. The reason this matters is that emails and meetings usually live in separate places, and the preparation that connects them happens in your head. And that is where things tend to fall apart. I click the plus icon near the input field again, go to connectors, and make sure both Gmail and Google Calendar are connected. Then I start a new Cowork task with both available in context. The prompt asks Claude to create a daily finance briefing by cross-referencing emails and calendar events. It should identify urgent issues and financial risks, surface upcoming meetings, and specify what needs to be prepared for each one, linking the relevant emails directly to the meetings they relate to. The logic in this prompt is reusable. It does not change from day to day. Only the data does, and that distinction becomes important in the next few tips. The output connects everything. At the top, there is a clean daily finance briefing with a snapshot of the day, number of meetings, number of finance-related emails, and urgent items flagged. Right below that, Claude translates all inbox activity even into a cash flow snapshot showing confirmed inflows of $20,000, upcoming outflows of $42,000, and explicitly identifying the client B delay as a risk. In this example, Claude sees a CFO email asking for a cash flow check, a cash flow review meeting at 2:30 p.m., an overdue vendor payment, and a delayed client payment. Instead of listing those separately, it ties the CFO's request directly to the 2 p.m. meeting and builds preparation steps around it. Check the current cash position, compare inflows versus outflows, assess the delayed client payment impact, and come prepared with a recommendation on the overdue vendor. The overdue vendor B invoice gets tied to the vendor payment discussion. The marketing overspend email gets linked to the budget variance meeting. Each meeting now has specific preparation instructions backed by the exact financial context from the emails. The calendar goes from a list of time slots to a fully actionable plan. Now here is where it goes further. You're not always at your desk when something urgent comes in. Claude Cowork has a dispatch mode that lets you trigger tasks from your phone while the execution happens on your main system. So instead of waiting till I get back to my laptop, I pick up my phone, I open Claude in dispatch mode, and I tell it to find the cash flow file named March_cashflow in my downloads folder, analyze the current position, and give me a short summary I can send to my CFO. I do not have to re-explain anything because Claude already has the full context from the briefing. On my phone, Claude acknowledges the task immediately. On the desktop, it starts executing. I can see it locate the file in the downloads directory, recognize it as an Excel file, load the tools to read it, and run the analysis step by step. The output appears in both places. On the desktop, a full March 2026 cash flow summary broken into sections for overview, inflows, outflows, and items requiring attention. It highlights the opening and closing cash position, the net outflow, confirmed inflows, and the two critical risks: the delayed payment from client B and the overdue liability to vendor B. On the phone, a concise version with key numbers formatted as a message that I can read and act on immediately. Nothing about this required going back to my desk, but I still wrote the prompt myself and defined what I wanted manually. The next step removes that entirely. Tip 3, use skills inside a structured finance project. All right, so this is where things change. I'm setting up a structured project environment with skills so that Claude already knows how to operate before you give it a single instruction. Up until now, if you wanted to, for example, run a variance analysis or any repeating process, you would write the same prompts again every single time. You'd explain the structure again, you'd define what to focus on again. Skills change that. So the entire process is built in just once. And from that point on, you just bring new data and then Claude executes the full analysis immediately. I go to the left sidebar, click projects and click start from scratch. I name it monthly finance analysis. Inside the project, I click choose project location and select my finance workspace folder. Then I find the instructions section and paste the analysis framework, telling Claude to act as a financial analyst, always identify key financial risks, highlight anomalies and unusual changes, focus on key drivers behind performance, explain results in a concise, structured format, and prioritize business impact over raw numbers, and then save the instructions. Now I put my Q1 budget versus actual file inside the project folder, open the project, and click New Task. At this point, Claude already has folder access. It has instructions and it has context. I type /finance:/variance-analysis, and then I press enter. Before running the analysis, Claude asks 3 structured questions through pop-ups. What type of output I want, what actuals should be compared against, and which variance drivers matter most. These configuration questions define the scope before any calculation starts, the same way a real analyst would clarify the brief before doing the work. Once I answer, Claude detects the Q1 budget versus actual file, reads the structure, and builds the full analysis automatically. On the right side, a Q1 2026 P&L variance summary appears with budget versus actual values, variance amounts, percentages, and favorable or unfavorable flags. Underneath, it builds the complete analytical layer: P&L summary, variance decomposition, a waterfall bridge from budget to actual, narrative explanations for each line item, and threshold-based materiality flags. Now on the left, I can see the workflow executing step by step, building the workbook, recalculating formulas, and validating all 134 formulas with 0 errors. The interpretation layer is where the real value sits. Now, Claude identifies that net income is below budget, driven primarily by revenue shortfall and marketing overspend, and quantifies each driver tied back to overall performance. I did not upload files manually, I didn't explain the structure or write a detailed prompt. The system already knew how to operate. Now, if you want the prompts and the datasets from this video, they're free and they're in the free community. The link is in the description below. Tip 4, automate recurring analysis with scheduled tasks. Now I'm automating the analysis I just ran, so it executes on a schedule without any manual triggering. Finance workflows are inherently recurring: weekly cash flow reviews, monthly variance analysis, regular reporting cycles. The structure stays the same, only the data changes. Now, if the process repeats and the logic does not change, it should not require you to do anything to initiate it. Inside my monthly finance analysis project, I look for scheduled tasks and click New Task. I name it weekly-variance-analysis, and in the description I write run weekly variance analysis on financial data and highlight key performance drivers. The prompt mirrors exactly what I ran manually. Analyze the latest financial data in this folder, compare actuals versus budget and prior period if available, identify key variance drivers, anomalies, and financial risks, provide a concise, structured summary suitable for management review. I set the frequency to weekly, choose Monday, set the time to 9 a.m, and at the bottom I click more options, then folder to work in, and select my finance workspace folder, and then I save it. Every Monday at 9 a.m, Claude enters the workspace, finds the latest budget versus actuals file, runs the full variance analysis using the same structured logic, and generates a management-ready output. I no longer need to remember to run the analysis or to recreate prompts or to re-explain what to focus on. When I drop updated data into the folder, the next scheduled run picks it up automatically. The same pattern applies to monthly reporting, to cash flow monitoring, budget versus forecast tracking, KPI dashboards, anything that repeats on a schedule. Tip 5, build an end-to-end pipeline from data to presentation. The final step is the full pipeline, going from raw financial data to a finished PowerPoint presentation in one continuous run. In most finance workflows, the analysis gets done, but then someone has to spend hours manually building slides. So this setup removes that step entirely. I open my monthly finance analysis project and start a new task. If my data needs restructuring first, I tell Claude to recreate a clean financial consolidation file based on the available data with proper structure, correct formulas, clear labeling, and updated periods. Once that is built, I give it the presentation prompt: prepare a financial review presentation comparing current performance with previous period, include a company level summary, key financial metrics, variance analysis, and 1 slide per segment. Keep it clear, structured, and presentation ready. Now, Claude does not jump straight to the slides. It first reads the Excel data and it asks clarifying questions about entity structure and what sheets to include, then builds the financial model layer covering the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. It then validates 268 formulas with 0 errors. Only after the model is verified does it move into the presentation generation. Now, this sequencing matters because the model has to be correct before anything gets turned into slides, and Claude enforces that order automatically. During the presentation phase, Claude generates a PPTX file, converts the slides to images for visual QA, detects layout issues like spacing and alignment problems, and then fixes them automatically and then regenerates the deck. And that is why the final slides come out clean, because Claude reviewed and corrected its own output before delivering it. And what looks like a single instruction is actually a multi-step pipeline. Analyze, structure, build, validate, convert, QA, fix, then deliver. The final presentation follows the structure of a real financial review meeting. It opens with an executive layer showing revenue, gross profit, net income, and margin. Then it moves into a bridge view, walking from budget to actual. Then it drills into the drivers, revenue, COGS, operating expenses, and closes with prioritized recommendations. It does not stop at explaining what happened. It moves into what should be done, suggesting actions like decomposing the revenue shortfall, auditing marketing spend, and updating the forecast. And the numbers flow consistently from the Excel file through the model and into the slides because everything is anchored to the same data source. There is no manual copying, there's no reformatting, and no risk of mismatched figures across layers. If you want the prompts and the data sets from this video, they're in the free community and the link is in the description below. Now, every one of these workflows builds on the previous one. The inbox becomes an intelligence feed. The calendar adds context and timing. And project environment adds consistency. The scheduler removes manual triggering. And the pipeline delivers finished outputs. Your role shifts from running the process to reviewing results and then making decisions. The systems do the execution. Your judgment is what makes the output useful. See you next time.